Puzzle Pirates is a fun take on a pirate-themed multiplayer game and is one of the most underrated games in my humble opinion. The game is still live and has enough players so you can engage in most of the activities that are in the game, but it heavily depends on the time and place because the game currently has only hundreds of players on an average day. Welcome to Forgotten Games. Bringing you this video took a lot of effort to research, record and even interview the original CEO of the game, so make sure to drop a like on the video, join the discussion in the comment sections or suggest the next game you want to see in this series. Puzzle Pirates is a Java-based MMO originally created by 3 Rings in 2003 until 2011, where it became a Sega studio. After the CEO of 3 Rings left the studio in 2014 and Sega were about to ditch the game in 2016, he decided, along with his co-founder, to create Grey Havens and purchase the game to keep it up until today. Not only does the original CEO and co-founder are part of Grey Havens, they also have some members from the Sega studio and the original studio as well. As explained to me in the interview, Grey Havens is a Lord of the Rings reference which completely went over my head since I haven't watched the trilogy yet. As the name Puzzle Pirates would suggest, you engage in pirate-related activities that are simulated through puzzle games. Having a sword fight with another pirate? Well, you need to stack up colored blocks, blocks of colors and drop a sword on them. Engaging in a fist fight? It's a bubble minigame with 2 fists. Fixing holes in your ship? You need to fill the holes without wasting any planks. Every activity in the game is simulated by these minigames, which are a great idea to make a chill pirate themed game that is good for all ages. It's a really good idea considering the hardware limitation back in 2003, which would make it hard to create a pirate themed MMO in any other way. Despite the mediocre graphics, grid-based movement and how unappealing the game might look to an outsider, it can be very fun and entertaining, and you really missed out on it if you haven't played it back in the day. The game begins with a few tutorial missions showing you the ropes, the key features of the game and what you're playing for. You start out as a lowly pirate with a pet rat, plain clothes, a tiny shack and a reggae bedroll. You can join voyaging vessels ran by NPCs or players online and help the crew maintain the vessel. Through the sailing and rigging puzzle, the vessels gain speed, which is needed to chase or evade other vessels. In naval battles, it generates moves that you can use in each turn. If a boat gets hit during naval combat, it will suffer damage that would require fixing through the carpentry station. If the damage goes untreated, the vessel will take on water and that needs to be bilged out through the bilging minigame. The cannons that you shoot during a naval combat are to be reloaded through a puzzle as well. And this is where the player's skill is really important because your damage output relies heavily on your crew's ability to keep the cannons loaded. As you set sail, you can either choose to pillage other NPC or player vessels, you can forage for items on an island, go sea monster hunting, which is kinda the same as pillaging with a little bit more uniqueness, seeing as you fight only stronger NPCs and sometimes the minigames change, and you have blockades as well, which I couldn't get into this time around, but as I recall them you only fend off waves of attackers in the regular puzzles of sword fighting and rumble. The average pirate would be mostly pillaging with his crew since you don't always have access to the other type of voyages. If you successfully beat another vessel, your crew loots their coffers and each member gets a cut right away. You get a little bit more later when the captain decides to divvy up the booty. You don't need to worry about being scammed out of the cut you're supposed to get at the end of the voyage, because even if they make you walk the plank or you just live on your own, you will still get your money after the loot is divided. You can also work at several shops and do job-related puzzles to get money based on your performance. If you do the puzzle once, you can get the salary passively for the next 10 days, as long as you have the labor badge, which I will explain soon. The idea of the game is to build wealth as a jobbing pirate, get into a crew or build yourself up enough so you can create your own crew, and command a fleet of vessels. You can war with other flags, which is a group of crews under the same flag, and you can even sink their boats if you find them at sea, meaning that the sunk vessel would be lost for them forever. So after I got back into the game, I managed to get a sloop, which is the smallest boat, and it was relatively quick with the help of my girlfriend, who also grew up playing the game. Our knowledge in the game helped us quite a lot in successfully buying the sloop at the cheapest price and gaining the money as fast as possible. Most of the fun purchases in-game require both pieces of 8, which is the regular currency of the game, and doubloons, which is the premium currency in the game. Luckily, you can get the premium currency with the regular currency in the game, and it's not super expensive if you're in a well-populated server. After buying the sloop, we had to find a crew to accept us and give us the officer rank so we can start pillaging with our new boat. One last thing that was missing after we found the crew was the officer badge, which is required if you wish to go on voyages and lead a vessel. This is the second time you hear the word badge in the video, so it's time to explain the role of badges in the game. As an F2P player in the game, you have access to all the content if you can buy a badge for that particular activity. A labor badge will let you forage or do job-related puzzles and earn money from employers actively or passively. A parlor badge would grant you access to PvP puzzles where you can gamble money. A bravery badge would allow you to do sea monster hunting. An officer badge lets you command voyages as long as you're an officer in your crew as well. And finally you have the captain badge, which lets you create a crew as long as you fulfill all the other requirements. If you didn't get it by now, badges are 30-day passes for each piece of content in the game. If you didn't log for the day, you won't get a day deducted from your badge, which is kind of nice. The badges are a way to nudge you to buy the balloons for real life money or a subscription so you can have easier access to all the content. Luckily, even if you don't have a badge, you do get to try the puzzles out for free, with one different puzzle being available every day. So after I bought the badge, I wanted to start pillaging, so I bought some RAM, which is required to run a pillage unless you want to have disadvantage when fighting other pirates. Yes, the game actually penalizes you if you don't have a RAM on board during a fight. I also bought small cannonballs so I can poke holes in other vessels that I chose to engage with. After earning a few successful voyages and gaining some loot, we found out that our precious sloop could be sunken because our crew, by a mistake, joined a warring flag. And apparently, even if we don't engage in PvP in the game, a 200-man vessel from the rival flag can find us anyway and choose to sink us without the game even warning us, which is a big issue I have with the game. The tutorial does teach you the basic puzzles and it has lengthy sections of info in the game, but no one's going to read it. The game needs to have a better tutorial or add more missions that let you experiment with the other content in the game a little bit more and explain the entire game thoroughly, because apparently not only does the game has a free market, those items that you find on the free market are gained by foraging and pillaging, and those items are used by shop owners to craft the furniture or vessels that you then buy. To craft those products, the owner uses your labor hours, either passively or actively, to fulfill the orders every day. The game has a very comprehensive economy that's well functioning, but at no point during the game they stop to explain it to you. You either have to play a little and figure it out for yourself, or you need to read a little bit online. It's not necessarily the worst thing that the game's tutorial is not good enough and that you have to look for info online. It's only bad when the wiki for the game is not as comprehensive as I'm used to from other games, and you have to piece together the info on the wiki with info gathered in the game and from the community. YouTube sadly doesn't have many good or recent videos about the game as well. Even after questioning more prominent and experienced players in the game, it seems like they also don't fully understand everything in the game, even for content that they sunk thousands of hours into. I might be biased because I play old school RuneScape a lot, and the game's wiki has almost every little detail and minutia laid out. The second issue that I have with the game is that it's missing very key quality of life upgrades. The movement and how you see the current chunk of the map is mediocre at best and should have been by now smoothed out over the years. If you wish to change the size of your window or go full screen, you need to restart the game, which would be acceptable maybe in 2003, not 20 years later. I even ran into an issue where I made the window a little bit too big, so I couldn't access the options button to change it back. I had to actually move my Windows taskbar so I can see a little bit below it and find the options so I can resize the window again, and this time resize it correctly. As I was told in the interview when I popped it up, it's a Java issue that requires you to restart the game for a window resizing to take effect. One more glaring issue is that the player base is separated by different servers and your character can't move freely between them. You need to actually create one for each server that you want to play on. There's nothing inherently bad about it when you have a large player base and you want the game's economy to be less flooded with all the items that players are farming in the game. It becomes bad when your game has lost its popularity and has maybe a few hundred players in a given day. Not only is it bad for the player experience, the game also shot itself in the foot because apparently you can only buy subscription on a subscription-only server. But the most popular server right now in the game is the Emerald server, which is free to play. So if you want to see other players and be able to do most of the activities, buying a subscription would go against that interest. The team is considering to allow some movement between the servers, but not between premium and doubloon-based servers. They also consider wealth transfer between the servers in the future. Another big issue with the game, and in my opinion was a big factor in its loss of popularity, was the fact that inactive players who made no real-life purchases had their characters deleted after a while. Imagine playing the game as a kid without purchasing anything and coming back to it after a few years to find all of it gone. There's a joke in RuneScape that you never quit the game but only take short breaks, and it's right for most multiplayer games because they don't delete your progress. Imagine that you had an expensive vessel, a crew that you created, a lot of badges, and after years, when you come back into the game, you have to acquire all of them all over again. That would easily lose you 90% of the old free-to-play crowd that might want to come back to the game. And this might also deter new players who aren't planning right now to make a purchase but could eventually make one in the game. I get it that they didn't make money from those players, but having more players in the server is way better than letting your game slowly die so you can save a few cents a month for all those characters that you're deleting. The reason that I was given during the interview for this issue is that they wanted to also free up names so that they can be used by other active players in the game, which might seem like BS, but there's a black market for highly desired account names in most MMO games, so I definitely believe them. I never considered it, but it seems like this affects even less populated games like Puzzle Pirates, because hackers are now also trying to gain access to old characters that weren't deleted, which results in a lot of accounts being locked out, since affirming who the owner is can be really hard. The last gripe I have with the game is the anti-list. The anti-list is a page in the wiki where the developers of the game reject updates that are commonly asked for. It could be cosmetic related updates, quality of life updates, and sometimes changes to the core mechanics of the game. The anti-list is both good and bad. It's good because it acknowledges the community and outlines what the game won't ever do, or at least won't do in the near future. They even categorize the rejections. An update can be rejected because it would affect the download size of the game, it would hinder the server's performance, it could clash with the theme of the game, or the developers don't see it in their vision for the game. I can respect the anti-list, much like when the developers of Escape from Tarkov said that they would never make a female operator because it's not in their vision for the game and it doesn't fit it thematically. The problem with the anti-list is that it's a little bit too long and it excludes a lot of nice to have features, including some that might save the game, like merging the servers. I understand that Grey Havens is a small team with probably not a lot of budget and an old codebase that could be limiting to them. Rewriting the codebase isn't going to be financially viable, but if they want the game to ever bounce back, they can't have these long lists of requests that is ignored. I know old school RuneScape had to deal with a similar issue of modernizing and unspaghetting their code so they can upgrade the game better. Now when I say spaghetti, I don't mean that necessarily it was developed in a bad way or that it was poorly written. Sometimes you make initial design choice that could be biting your ass and limiting you in the future, including the platform which you created the game on. That gamble of putting more resources towards the game had paid off for old school RuneScape, and the game gets more than 100,000 players consistently. OSRS also has its mobile version going for it, which could have been nice for Puzzle Pirates. The game was actually available once on iPad, but the community reportedly didn't like the new UI. In my opinion, old games like Puzzle Pirates have a very hard time fighting against other modern PC games. This sentiment was also reflected in the interview by the CEO. If you move to the mobile market, I think that Puzzle Pirates absolutely outclasses 95% of the free-to-play games there. As I was told during the interview, there is an attempt at the mobile market by a mobile spiritual successor to Puzzle Pirates called Puzzle Wizards. You can find the game on mobile and Steam as an early access title, but from the looks of it, it wasn't looking like the Puzzle Pirates experience I was craving. Grey Havens is currently not working on a mobile game, and the reason given, aside from the iPad version not being popular, is that the game might be too deep and complex for the mobile market. And I somewhat agree. Puzzle Pirates can be a really fun and chill experience, the server could be more lively and filled. It won't happen until the game gets in front of more eyes and captures them better, which would be hard to do on PC, but way easier on mobile, if they can make the UI easy to enter and make the puzzles work there as well. The CEO of Grey Havens confirmed that the game is indeed making a profit, and from what I've gathered, it seems like the approach right now is to maintain the game, keep the community happy with the updates that they can push, and try not to rock the boat, so to speak. Some updates that could make the game more appealing to a new player could be also risky enough to completely kill the existing player base and alienate old players. I don't envy their current situation, and I hope they do find those new players while keeping the old player base, because I truly enjoy Puzzle Pirates and I think the entire premise of the game is genius. even though it seems really basic right now. Think of it, back in 2003 it was a heap of fun, and even today it's a heap of fun, and I hope it gets more players so I can pillage with them, pillage against them, and engage in all of the activities the game has to offer. Thank you for joining me on Forgotten Games. Make sure to leave a like on the video, join the discussion in the comment section, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Until the next time, good luck and have fun.